Hi, I'm ChitraNawbatt here at Flushing Meadows, New York for TRT World. And I'm joined by Patrick McEnroe, former Davis Cup captain and longtime ESPN commentator. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to our beautiful ESPN studio here. We get to see the players practice right behind us. We just had Rafael Nadal here today. He's trying to find his A game. Serena Williams was out here yesterday working on her serve after her win. So it just shows you how she's continuing to strive for perfection.
Well, you're saying the players real-time practicing.
Yep.
Let's talk about the men's game. What's your assessment?
Well, obviously, you've got a couple of all-time greats at the top right now. Novak Djokovic is the top seed. He's won 2 of the majors this year. He's certainly still, I think, the favorite. But obviously, Roger Federer, who's won 5 U.S. Opens, but it's been a number of years since he's been even in the final here. But he had a wonderful summer. He beat Djokovic and Murray in Cincinnati, a big tune-up tournament. And then, of course, Andy Murray, who's won this title before. He's the number 3 seed. It's hard for me to think of someone outside those big 3 winning the title this year because all 3 of those guys are in very good form.
When you think about those 3, as you've been watching them play and practice, what are you observing in terms of their competitiveness, their focus, differences in their skill?
You know, it really depends on where they're at. Obviously, with Nadal, who's had some issues this year with his confidence, you look at the things he's working on in practice. Is it more in his head? Is he working on more technical things? I think he's doing a little bit of everything. When you watch Roger Federer, you just marvel at his brilliance. You know, the way he can continue at 34 to be right at the top of the game. So you don't take too much out of what you see from him on the practice court. But he's playing with a lot of confidence, and it seems very relaxed. Andy Murray, you know, he's a guy that he shows his emotions a bit more. So you kind of look for where his head's at. What's his mentality like when he goes out there and plays the matches? So each of them are a little bit different. You got to know each of them and their own personalities. And then you just try to see, really for them at this level, it's mostly about where their mind is right now.
What's your prediction?
You know, it's a hard one to go with. I'm sort of leaning towards Federer right now, but he's got a pretty good draw. Murray's in there as well. He would play him potentially in the semifinals. So if you put a gun to my head, it's hard to not pick Djokovic because he's the best all-around hardcourt player. But something tells me it might be time for Roger Federer to win one more major tournament.
When it comes to the future, who are some of the players to challenge?
Well, we've seen quite a few of them at the tournament this year. They didn't make it through necessarily, but Nick Kyrgios is very talented. He's been in the news a lot because of some things that he'd probably like to forget, but he's got incredible talent. We've got Andrei Rublev, a 17-year-old from Russia, Misha Zverev, who's a kid from Germany, Francis Tiafoe, who's American, Borna Coric, who lost to Nadal in the opening round. So there's a lot of really good teenagers coming up. I think it's going to be about another year or 2 before you see them really break through and potentially get to the last weekend of a Grand Slam because the physicality of the top players is so much stronger. But there's a lot of good rising talent that's starting to come through.
You talked about Nick Kyrgios. There's a lot of controversy around him. Tantrums. Your brother John was known for his tantrums on the court. What's your take?
Oh, my brother John was known for winning Grand Slams, number 1. In addition to that, and also he didn't do what Nick Kyrgios did. He obviously got upset out there, but what Kyrgios did in some of the things he said about another player and some other players was obviously uncalled for. And what would worry me as a Kyrgios fan, because I am a fan of his game and his talent and his charisma, is that sometimes some of the shots he makes are more for fan entertainment rather than actually trying to win the match. So obviously you want some entertainment, you want that flair, but the most important thing is to try to win tennis matches, particularly on the biggest stages in tennis. But I think if he can learn a lesson and sort of regroup a little bit, get some good people around him. Leighton Hewitt's trying to help him and mentor him, so to speak. He certainly has the potential to win tournaments like this in the future.
You just mentioned fan entertainment. Serena Williams, how important is she to the women's game?
Well, she is a women's game at the moment. In a lot of ways, she's the tennis game. I mean, she's our biggest story coming into the U.S. Open, male or female. And that's because of how great she is and what she's accomplished in her career, but particularly in the last 12 months, starting the last year's U.S. Open. She hasn't lost a match in a major. So to do what she's trying to do to win the calendar slam, obviously has not been done for a long time. Steffi Graf did it back in '88. And you just marvel at what she's able to do at her age. You know, when most players are usually towards the tail end of their career, she seemed to have peaked in the last couple of years. So it's incredible. We have to enjoy it as we we see it unfold. That being said, it's not a no-brainer that she's going to win this title. She still has some struggles, and I think she's going to have a couple tough matches before she can hold the trophy again.
And what are those struggles that you're seeing? Because you're watching her practice. I saw her practice here this morning and on Tuesday. What are some of those struggles?
Well, I think some of it is, her serve obviously has not been spot on as it normally is. She's made a few more mistakes, but we've seen her do that this summer and even throughout the year in big tournaments. At the French Open, which obviously she won, 5 times she went the distance, had to go 3 sets. So she's been able to fight through those matches a lot better. She never panics. She's obviously ultra competitive. And I think if she can get that serve going and get her footwork going, those are the things that for her, if she's feeling a little bit nervous, can go off. And understandably, I think she's going to have to fight through some nerves with all the pressure that's on her here.
And eventually when she retires, how do you fill the void?
Well, you do not fill the void of a Serena Williams, but I think there's also, as on the men's side, there's some young up and comers. I think you're seeing it in the women's game too. Madison Keys from the United States, she's still in the tournament. Belinda Bencic, who's one of just 2 players to beat Serena this year, is another 18-year-old. She's got some spark, some personality, and I think a lot of belief as well. So I think it's impossible to fill a void like Serena because of how great she is, just like for Roger Federer. When he retires, that will be difficult. They're 2 of the all-time greats, arguably maybe the 2 greatest male and female players ever. So I think let's enjoy Serena while we have her, and it sounds like she has every intention to play a couple more years.
Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, anytime.